Welcome, viewers, for another session of Mazungumzo. This is your host, Dr. Gilbert Githere, coming to your homes with program Mazungumzo, And those people who are familiar with me, we cover the analysis of Being and Time by Martin Heidegger. And it's a beautiful piece of the existence, Dasein, existence. It means the existence of a human being in this world, or Gaia, the environment we're in. Because Martin Heidegger, during his time, turn of the century, the 19th century, the 20th century, he discovered that nobody had even covered what is being, being. What does it entail? He went into the details of trying to decipher or to discover who entities are related to Daseins or human existence in this world. And he wrote a beautiful piece, Being and Time. Now, I'm going to continue from where I left. Now we're in part 14. So you go to, they're available on YouTube. So if you miss something, you can go back and digest it and analyze it more for tacit points, fine points that you might have missed. Dasein is not the basis of its being. Its basis arises from its projection. It is the being of its basis, projection. It projects it outside there to the environment. And you must realize, or I might just enlighten you in that Martin Heidegger wrote this piece in German. Very, very intricate, language of German. And some translation like projection. If you have the real German meaning, maybe it would given you even more depth. As Jacques Derrida used to say, you must deconstruct a sentence to get its true meaning. Excuse me. Excuse me. The entities whose being is care, and those that their being is truthful, are said to be guilty on the very basis of their being. That's a mouthful. Dasein is guilty on the basis of its being. If indeed Cole gives us this being guilty as something deep in the self, then it is of utmost importance we get to the bottom of it and understand it. So in a Judeo-Christian religion, we are sinners. We have this original sin. So I think Martin Heidegger, being from the background of, Catholicism or Lutheran religion, whatever was his inclination, he knew deep at the existence of man, there is the problem of being guilty from the original sin. Bible. It follows people. You can't escape it. And I think that paragraph I read there, I think it actually engulfs, or it gives that depth of the guilt as you exist at this time of between, because we are in part 14, guilt is starting to come in. To understand care and Dasein, existence, in the existential ontological phenomenological constitution, care is so important in the existence of man. At the center of man, care is at the top of everything. So remember that word care, and I have bolded it. To understand care, we must start at the entities that make it up. And these are guilt and death. So you see, entities are the ones who make up Dasein. and they are the ones we are trying to dig out. So you see here, we have guilt and death and care. These are entities, and they are death and guilt are variable of care. So as you care for other people, really, it is because of the guilt in us and the idea that we are not immortal. We will one time end. We will die. These two entities are who make up design. Them being a variable of care, they make up who design is essentially as it strives to exist in the Gaia or in the world. As a result of the above definition, it is just fitting when addressing the call. You hear people saying, you hear them talking, and they tell you they had a calling. And they decided to go to Africa to give service to human beings who might be suffering from different problems of the world. So a calling is also an entity of design. A so-called is associated with design. It is appropriate that we approach this issue resolutely with all determination we have. The potentiality of being, self, being towards death goes out to counter potentiality to being guilty. It sends out holding for true, which in simple terms, it sends out resoluteness. So resoluteness, you have to have it, because to face your end on this earth, being resolute is of utmost importance, because it is what will give you that kind of denial which all humans have. And at the back of your mind, you in your schema, in your subconscious, you are aware that one time you will have to meet your maker. You come to the end, and resoluteness kind of gives you the energy, the potential. Because design by nature, he has potential for being. Because if you know there is an end you're going to face, one thing you must have plenty of is potential for being. Then, taken strictly, meaning. Every entity, for it to make sense, has to have a meaning. It is so important. Every sentence that human beings construct for their survival, because every sentence is constructed for the mean to make life better, to make design, to make humans survive, to face what is before them, has got to have a meaning. An object which tallies with its knowledge is said to be true or has meaning. When you listen to the sentence, is intelligence. It has some intelligence in it. So, taken strictly, meaning signifies the upon which of the primary projection of the understanding of being. Meaning is made possible by the understanding doesn't acquires over time. It's like you become knowledgeable. Then most of the things you talk about to people, or when you're conversing, soliloquy, talking to yourself, they all have got to make meaning. You will only be comfortable in the environment if everything that you are uttering in a discourse have a meaning. They make sense to you. And that's called understanding. It's a very important thing. State of mind, understanding, falling, and discourse. They're vital for the survival and the existence of human beings. When being in the world has been disclosed to itself and understands the being of that entity which it is itself is, it understands equiprimordially the being of entities discovered within the world, even if such being has not been made a theme and has not yet even been differentiated into its primary modes of existence and reality. They must make sense, even if not yet expounded properly. They are always in a stage of development, firstness, secondness, and thirdness, according to Sanders Peirce, the language and the meaning of things. It develops, it builds up from the firstness, secondness, and the thirdness. You go to read Charles Sanders Peirce, this guru from Harvard. He was a linguist. So he wrote about how language develops over time to make meaning. It passes through stages. So this sentence is actually, you can say, is Pearson. All ontological experience of entities, both circumspective calculation of the ready to hand and the positive scientific cognition of the present at hand, is based upon projections of the being of the corresponding entities, projections which in every case are more or less transparent. But in these projections, there lies hidden the upon which of the projection, and on this, as it were, the understanding of being nourishes itself. So you can see Martin Heidegger, as he continues to expound what's being, who entities make it, he's also showing you how somebody acquires knowledge. His understanding increases from deciphering what are the entities that are necessary for him to survive the world he's in its everydayness. The worldhood needs entities to let being survive. And as you acquire the meaning and you know the entities that make you survive, you're acquiring knowledge. So Hegel, for human beings to gain knowledge, he brought in the word consciousness. In Hegelian terms, acquisition of knowledge is becoming conscious of your environment. So you can see consciousness, existence. For existence to be able, you have got to acquire knowledge through understanding. And also Immanuel Kant, in his masterpiece, he also takes us through stages of acquisition of knowledge by human beings. A perception, conception, cognition, perception, thinking, understanding, judgment. And you can see, or reason, until you start actually becoming, you know. That's why you go from existential, ontological, phenomenological, because ontologically, the science, the nature of being also involves knowledge. That's another, I'm deviating, let's keep to the notes. Once entities have meaning, then automatically it means they have been unconcealed and discovered. Their being has been exposed So in Dyson's understanding, they have been deciphered. So actually, in acquisition of knowing entities is also the action of acquiring knowledge. It's very, very interesting. The discovery of entities makes them intelligent, of Dyson's understanding and knowledge in general. So that's why the construction of sentences, putting together sentences. Michael Foucault, The Archaeology of Language. Michael Foucault did a good piece. If you are to understand language, you got to read Michael Foucault, The Archaeology of Building Language. I don't have the whole title, but you can check Michael Foucault, famous French philosopher. Understanding is what makes it possible for entities to have meaning. Design becomes authentically or inauthentically exposed to itself through the meaning that understanding acquires. Fantastic. The entities that are unconcealed are the ones that make up the being of design as it relates to its existence, or in other words, it makes up its potentiality for being. The potentiality for being is actually identifying who are the entities that make you what you are. Also, it is important to note that care is made up of entities. Care is made up of entities, and these entities are also those who design needs for its existence. So I told you the word care is at the center of human life. Care. Conscience, the fine inner voice that always advises you good and bad, your conscience. If you're going to be unethical, it kicks in knowingly or unknowingly and probes your consciousness. Is this thing right for me to do? Or I should stop and not do it? Right there, conscience is at the center of our being. You lack it, sometimes you become too inhuman, too unethical. And these are things also, when you start to comprehend them, they make you a better person. They probe your consciousness. Also, it is important to know that care is made up of entities, and these entities are also those who Dasein needs for its existence. Dasein's being has a meaning in today's language. Is that Dasein's being is made up of certain coded algorithms who make up his existence. This is parceled out in Dasein's understanding, and it is not something external to him. This is the realm of knowing the self. The realm of knowing the self. At the center of Dasein's existence is anticipatory resoluteness, which is a variable of its potentiality for being. It is all the time working against death. That's a very important point right there. Because Martin Heidegger is building up the being, our being, and the entities who we require to be who we are. And as they build up and we acquire knowledge, we know who we are. We understand the self outside the self. the consciousness probes the outside, and we become completely aware that at some time in our life, as we get older, we will have to depart this world. And in most of the things that we do, using the entities we have acquired, we are addressing ourselves to the ends of our days. But don't forget, we also have birth. We are born. And there is so much celebration. There is a birthday. You can see everybody remembers when they were born and they celebrate it. But we have not gone back there and seen what makes up the history of our being from birth. Because Dasein by nature, he historizes about his past. Temporality temporalizes and historizes. We're going to come to that because we must also show where the being we come from. That's for another time. That's for where we are going. Because Martin Heidegger starts by probing, how does our death come along? So he starts from the end, but he also reminds us we cannot forget the history of the past. You cannot forget your past. That's Bob Marley, You must know your history so you don't forget your past. That's a story for another day. So these theories have been used in songs also. Tulipokuwa shamba mimi nawe, mapenzi yetu yalizidi. Kukuleta mjini we dada, nimefanya kosa. Najua wazuzuka we dada, na mambo ya mjini. Lakini muulize mwenzio Kibena, alivoteseka mama, na mambo ya mjini. Ewe Kibena, ewe mizuka, ewe Kibena. Ewe mizuka, ewe Kibena, ewe. Tulipokuwa shamba mimi nawe, mapenzi yetu yalizidi. Kukuleta mjini we dada, nimefanya kosa. Najua wazuzuka we dada, na mambo ya mjini. Lakini muulize mwenzio Kibena, alivoteseka mama. That's existence. And that's what I'm talking about. There is suffering, there is longing, there is anxiety, there is guilt, there is curiosity, there is anticipation, there is longing. All these things are entities that make us who we are. Ability to make fun of ourselves. Ability to sing about ourselves. Because humans, as Ali Mazrui, the famous professor from Kenya, used to say, human beings are homo aestheticus by nature. They love beauty. That's a statement Ali Mazrui. Mungu amweke mahali pema kwa heri. So, at the center of Dasein's existence is anticipatory resoluteness, which is a variable of its potentiality for being. It is all the time working against death. Dasein is able to do the above by working against itself. Dialectically, it discloses its inner thoughts against its future and stays at the now thoughts which it uses to ponder about its existence. Anticipatory resoluteness is a curiosity in Dasein about the future and what is out there for it to utilize in maximizing its existence. This becomes a tool for circumspection of present at hand and ready-to-hand entities who are for Dasein's well-being. Resoluteness is what makes those entities present be able to be unconcealed. Because resoluteness, you have got to dig deeper into the meaning of life. Martin Heidegger rarely uses the word life, because life in existential, ontological, phenomenological realm or thought or constitution, it doesn't jive well with the primordial, way before knowledge was polluted by human beings. It works better with existence rather than life. This becomes a tool of circumspection of present at hand and ready at hand entities. Now, present at hand, ready to hand. If you remember in the beginning programs, I discussed that within a piece of, let's say, a log, there is a beautiful statue in every log, or in every beautiful marble, there is a statue, but you got to be an artist. So when things exist like the statue I'm talking about abstractly is within the marble or the log, those are entities that are still present at hand. They are hidden. We are going to acquire knowledge either scientifically or through wisdom, and then realize within rocks you can also get a statue. And then when it is still there, it's ready at hand when you are an artist and you have got the right tools. You're like Elimonjao. You can dig out the statue. You can bring it out from the log. If you are somebody like Langston Hughes, you can bring us the poem, The River. We have known them rivers. Or you can bring us How Long Has the Train Been Gone by James Baldwin. Giovanni's Rome. You can bring from life this piece of art, Giovanni's Rome, for us to enjoy. As Ali Mazrui said, he said, human beings by nature are homo aestheticus. Anticipatory resoluteness is a curiosity in design about the future and what is out there for it to utilize, maximizing its existence. This becomes a tool for circumspection of present at hand, ready at hand. Who are the design's well-being? Resoluteness is what makes these entities present and be able to be unconcealed. I think I had read that one. Sorry, forgive me. The present comes from having been futural. This made possible by the resoluteness that is design. This having been, creating the present from the future, is what Heidegger called temporality. That's a very, very important word. Temporality temporalizes. We are all made up of nothing but temporality and temporalizing. Because we are conscious creatures. We have consciousness. We're existing. We are thinking of our future. You're saving as you work and you go to work every day. You're saving for your future. You are living your future in now. And that's how you realize you'll see yourself in a retirement home, kind of living this kind of life and listening to the music you're listening now. We are reliving the future. And also, we at times visit our past and even visit places we have been in the now. You can go to a place and you see, oh, I've been to this place. You're feeling it from the past. And that is all temporality temporalizes. It is that being to travel, time travel in the future and the past. It's a big, big job of existence. And that's why the present comes from having been. It is futural. This is made possible by resoluteness. That is Dasein's ability. This having been, in quotes, it should be in quotes a little bit, creating the present from the future, is what Martin Heidegger called temporality. It's an abstract kind of dialectics. You go to kind of play with it until you start visualizing it. That when you are living the now one, now two, now three. It's like seconds are ticking. When they tick, that is now one, which is past. We are now going to the future, the next one. And that's the existence of Dasein. Let me not confuse you so much. You digest it slowly, you're going to understand. Only insofar as Dasein has the definite character of temporality is the authentic potentiality for being a whole of anticipatory resoluteness, as we have described it, made possible by Dasein itself. Temporality reveals itself as the meaning of authentic care. You have to have time to have being. So existence will only make meaning when there is time. And temporality is the beat of time. It's like the conductor. It temporalizes. It's the one which gives the rhythm to life. The seconds tick. And we are getting older. We are getting wiser. We are getting kinder. We are getting humbler. We are getting wealthy. We are getting poorer. We are getting intoxicated in that music of life. Anticipatory resoluteness negates the way we define past, present, and future. It also transforms the way we perceive time. This change in the structure of the above is due to temporality, which allows time travel between points in Dasein's existence. It's it's something you go to digest every day if you're going to read Being and Time. And persevere until you start to comprehend the importance of temporality in what Martin Heidegger is writing. Because actually time itself, the seconds, is actually, you can equate it with the finality of life. Because imagine yourself, when time stops, when will time stop? Is when you cannot hear the time and it'll be your end of life. So in actual sense, temporality that temporalizes. When it stops to temporalize, we cease to exist. But that is coming, because that's where Martin Heidegger is headed to in the search for entities who make us what we are. I'll repeat. The aspect of past, present, and future in the authentic temporality are not proper. For them to be rectified, we have to start from time immemorial phenomenologically. And then ontologically, the three phenomena will rectify themselves in such they become authentic temporality concepts. Starting in the primordial to search for being is important, because the text that has been left by our forefathers is corrupted by different things. It's corrupted by beliefs. It's corrupted by knowledge that came before. It also politicized. It was shortchanged by the economy of the day, the geography, the changes of the climate and everything. So things are not really, the entities are not clear unless you go primordial, tabula rasa, and you look at entities that make us who we are from that perspective, existential, ontological, phenomenological constitution. And then you use ecstasis outside of the self-consciousness. Temporality is actually an element of ecstasis outside this self, the consciousness. Temporality temporalizes the past, present, and the future. Having been present, making present now, then, in order to. It is important to mention that inauthentic temporality has its roots from temporality. Due to this fact, the above phenomena is able to be formulated. Now, this is Hegelian dialectics. There is the negative and there is the positive, inauthentic and authentic. In everything in life, there is the negative and there is the positive element, and they balance what we have. Our earth is balanced by the North Pole, South Pole, West, and East, by the poles. That's why we have a magnetic pole. When you're traveling, you want to know where you're going, you've got to have a compass. In the above scenario, resoluteness is able to perform its work of avoiding to be threatened by the future events like death, which challenges its potentiality for being or its search for holiness. I'll check how much time we have done. Okay. The totality of being as care of Dasein means ahead of itself. Listen to that. The totality of being as care of Dasein means being ahead of itself, being alongside and already being in. It must take care of the past. Time travel, the one I talked about, has got to be talking to you like the way I'm doing the present. And it has got to think about its retirement in a care home or living with in an elderly home or living with the relatives when you're about 83, 85 in the future. So, totality of being, which we care about, has those three elements. Temporality is the meaning of care. Existence, fluxicity, and falling are the parts that make up temporality. Temporality is also made up of the future, the having been, and the present. These are just the explanation of definitions. Because when we are looking for these entities that I'm talking about, care, death, guilt, we are almost constantly and almost every day in our everydayness, we are doing time travel.